At the age of 10, I burned my right leg to the bone. I was never supposed to walk again. We can put a syringe of liquid skin into it and deliver it to a patient without touching them, which in my opinion is going to be a godsend for burn victims. I'm holding a sheet of skin right now. This is skin that we spun from soy protein. If we ever run out of soybeans, you and I are all in trouble. My goal is to get OmegaSkin sheets in the backpack of every warfighter that we deploy into combat.
You can't replace part of the brain.
You treat them the same.
Source of truth for the medtech industry.
Coexists with the puppets.
Robot understands things automatically.
Number one show in the medtech industry.
So Stryker got ahead of that and changed in the 90s, billion-dollar company. They had help up high, a lot of things. The State of MedTech.
With your host, Omar M. Khateeb.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. So today's episode is going to be sort of a hallmark episode. You know, there's so many different areas and specialties of medicine. We try to cover them all. So this is actually going to be our very first derm or skin-based episode. Today's guest is the CEO and founder of NeuEsse, Joe Connell, who we met at the LSI, I guess, after party. And, you know, his story and more importantly, like his mission really resonated with me. And, you know, I loved what I heard. And so the best part about the show is that we try and find the most like exciting companies that you may not have heard of. So Joe, thank you so much for coming on the show. How are you doing today?
Thanks for having me. I'm very excited to be here. There's nothing like telling your story, and I think we have a good one to tell.
I think you have a great one to tell. So, you know, before we get into the company and the mission, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Like, what's your background and how did you get into the medtech industry?
I've been in pharmaceuticals, life sciences for 41 years. I started out with Hoffman LaRoche, carrying a bag, working up to medical sales, hospital sales, VA sales, government, division manager, and beyond. And I went out to build a company from scratch called Boehringer Mannheim from Germany. We launched that, hired a sales force, trained everyone, and they wrapped the whole thing up and sold it to Roche. So I became entrepreneurial because you don't go home again with the Swiss. So fantastic training, 41 years of experience. How I got into this is because I needed it at one time, and I need to make this technology available to other people. And that's the wounded, the burned, surgical patients. So I have good history of drug development, drug launches, and working with a huge company. I've managed a sea of suits and had a company that could fit in one Ford Taurus. And I managed both with the same gusto, but been at it a long time until I found this mission.
Fantastic. So you said that you needed it at one time. So what happened to you in the past?
At the age of 10, I burned my right leg to the bone, and I burned 30% of my body surface. I was never supposed to walk again. I was in a country hospital in Connellsville, Pennsylvania, whereupon they took 360 deep circles of skin from my upper thigh, and they rebuilt my leg. That took 360 new wounds and 360 new scars, but it's a very functioning leg. I don't want any pity. I went on to broad jump, play football, wrestle, and do many things. But the experience is something that would drive anyone with the ability to save someone else from experiencing that. That's my mission, and that's my history. I'm a burn victim.
Got it. So you went on and you essentially started a career in pharma. What was happening the day that you decided that you're going to start a company to focus on wound care and healing skin this way?
I had just taken a company public that took a biopsy of a patient's skin, put it on a collagen wafer at Lonza, fed the skin, and put a person's own skin back onto them. And it was miraculous, it was life-saving, and it was rewarding, sort of. We took the company public, and I left differences of opinion in management, but I had an experience of saving lives and helping people and growing skin when this opportunity came looking for me. It was technology that I licensed and co-founded a company to bring this skin to market. And in essence, my company makes a human skin substitute from soybeans. And usually people don't believe that the first 3 times I tell them, but we make a regenerative human skin substitute from soy protein. And I got started because the opportunity was looking for me, and I was looking for a mission. We found each other.
That's amazing. How big of a problem is this? Like, maybe we can start with the burn side, but kind of give us an idea of this market size. Let's just focus, for example, just here in the US. How many patients are affected by this? What does that market look like for the investors who might be listening?
The biggest organ in everyone's body is skin. No one gets out of life without damaging it in some way or another. And the market is enormous. I don't want to use all the buzzwords of awesome and overwhelming, but 18 million people a year are diagnosed with diabetes, and we are in the market to treat diabetic foot ulcers. It's $20 billion a year just for burn victims. It is $15 billion a year for bed sores. So $78 billion. It's a crowded market because so many people are injured, burned, and go through surgical procedures. However, the differentiator is that any occlusive dressing will do two things: keep moisture in so that the wound can heal, and keeps bacteria out. But when a patient does heal, they usually heal with a thick, slick scar devoid of any hair follicles and sweat glands. They have a healed wound that doesn't look very good. I know because I have one.
Interesting. And outside of, let's say, just burn victims, like where would we see like some other trauma or pathologies where this kind of approach or product would be needed?
If you look at the market, there's bed sores, there's acute wounds, there's chronic wounds, diabetic foot ulcers, venous stasis ulcers, then there's burns, and then there's animal and veterinary health, which is applicable to this skin. Then there's aesthetic beauty and dermatology. If you have Mohs surgery, biopsies, breast reconstructions, nevus removal, and then there's C-sections, surgical wounds. So the market is vast if you look at it that way.
Yeah, I would say like if we just focus on burn, like roughly how many people a year are impacted by some kind of burn or trauma?
Very,
Like,
very
what-
severe burns are 2 to 3 million. And that's not the overwhelming number that I'll use in other indications, but the severity of that wound. If you ever had a wound of a second or third degree burn, it's something you'd never forget. It's the most traumatic and terrible wound I've ever known, experienced, or watched. To heal a third degree burn sometimes costs between $300,000 to $500,000, and you're left with the scars that I talked about. You have to donate skin from other parts of the body. It's the smallest piece of the market that I'm venturing to capture, but it's the most severe, and it's the market and the wound that drives me to keep going.
Got it. So how is this problem essentially being solved today, like in the clinical setting?
Well, if you look at the market, I mentioned it's crowded, but my competition is made from skin substitutes made from pigs, cows, cadavers. The newer products are neonatal foreskins, amniotic tissue, and even fish skin. Again, you keep moisture in and bacteria out, you heal wounds, and you leave a scar. We have proven and published full thickness wounds are healed with our product with minimal to no scar. The first study we ever did was at Temple University, and we proved that there was minimal to no scarring. But once we looked into the histology of that wound bed, we were overwhelmed because we saw that it was indeed regenerative. We saw hair follicles and sweat glands. And armed with that, we went head to head in a comparison with Smith & Nephew's OESIS. And we proved again that it was regenerative. In 3 days, the skin cells and epithelium was lined up and organized with our product, and not so with OESIS or any other occlusive dressing. And in 7 days, we saw that wound bed filled with newly produced collagen. And we saw the appendages, hair follicles, sweat glands, sebaceous glands. They appeared in 7 days. Armed with that, we went further to research this because it has a lot to offer.
And so you're sort of the breakthrough that you guys are seeing using soybean-based skin substitutes is that minimal to no scarring. And then the other side is that you see sweat glands and other structures like reform within the skin. They don't normally see that being reformed with the current standard of care, whether it's like pig or cadaver skin or anything else.
You're not going to find that in any other occlusive dressing.
Why is that though?
Well, because they don't have the biomechanical interactions. They don't have, we provide a scaffold that allows the keratinocytes and the macrophages to glom onto a scaffold to allow more efficacious healing. And then we see the hair follicles, sweat glands, and the appendages. So you don't see that if you just cover a wound and let it heal.
Interesting. I guess, and let me share my screen for those who are watching on, let's say, YouTube or on Spotify. So essentially, this is what your scaffold looks like under a microscope. The best way to think about this is that because it's a plant and it's a scaffolding, it allows your body to essentially tailor and reconstruct everything the way it wants, versus if you use some other skin substitute, there's already structures there and it's not exactly conducive for the body to go and build upon.
Not just that, Omar, but even as minuscule as the risk is, if you have a skin substitute from a cadaverous or animal-based product, the bioburden and infection risk is inherently there. And there's more to it, that this product, being regenerative, is also race agnostic. Whatever color skin you have, you will regenerate that skin. The product that I took public, took a biopsy of a patient's skin, it rejected, it canceled rejection, but it was devoid of pigmentation or melanin. We saved the lives of a couple African-American soldiers, but everything we put on them had no color. It was white. So what we're putting on OmegaSkin, we're finding that the patients are healing with their own skin tone.
Got it. Something I saw is that I believe you have the development of a couple things. One is a liquid sprayable skin, and then a proprietary skin gun. Can you share a little bit more about
patented proprietary skin gun, but it's more than a skin gun. It's a handheld electrospinner. We can put a syringe of liquid skin into it and deliver it to a patient without touching them, which in my opinion is going to be a godsend for burn victims. You don't want anything to touch those raw nerve endings, not a nurse, not a bandage. So we're able to spray liquid skin. And if you look at the diabetic foot ulcer, it doesn't give us the courtesy of coming in circles or squares. It's asymmetrical. We can fill that cavity with liquid skin that will not crack, peel, or leave the diabetic foot ulceration, and it will accelerate healing just that much more. We have much more beyond that. We've just proven with research done at Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, this is the perfect platform technology for the delivery of stem cells and growth factors, and that'll transcend us far beyond wound healing and burns. Going back to that proprietary gun, we can put a syringe of blood staunching agent and deliver that to stop bleeding, then change the syringe to liquid skin and cover that wound that we've now caused cessation of bleeding. We could cover that for transport to a military-based hospital or transport to an emergency room or hospitalization.
Interesting. Now, on your devices, I read that you have, or at least you're pursuing both a 510K device approval and then also a future PMA for therapeutic indications. Can you walk us through a little bit the significance between those two FDA pathways for your products? Like, what's the timeline look like, and what are you trying to achieve?
Well, the timeline for a 510K, supposedly, we have to have a decision in 90 days once we apply for FDA approval. If you take that versus a therapeutic, it could take years to even get a response from the FDA. And while I worked on product teams at Roche, we did suffer those years of anticipation. But for a device, 90 days for approval. We are one test away from submission to the FDA, and we anticipate a product launch late summer or early fall of this year.
Fantastic. For me, I spend a little bit of time in the aesthetic space. So like beyond wound care, I feel like this technology is very applicable in the aesthetic space. I think every medical technology, it's really important to have like a beachhead market, right, to own before you start going to other things. But your device is very, I don't want to call it simple, but it's very simple and straightforward. And so it's not like someone would look at it and they have to, extrapolate too far to say like, oh, this is applicable here and in all these different areas. Like, and I think like things are coming to mind like C-sections, for example, right? I think there's so many things these days that, if you think about minimally invasive surgery, one of the two big benefits that are constantly marketed is like, you have a smaller scar, right?
Right. We have proven minimal to no scar. And whether we use liquid sprayable skin over a C-section, If you think of aesthetics, and I like their segue, why wouldn't we put sheets of skin into repair packages after post laser ablation? Right now, all we have is Aquaphor or Vaseline to sit at home and wait for that red face to heal. We could put a protein patch onto the skin, help it rejuvenate the skin, accelerate healing. We anticipate greater elasticity after healing. And each day you could shower off that patch and put a new one on. And that would be good for, we're talking about wounds and some serious bad things. What about the good things of people getting wrinkles removed with laser? And if you go aggressively, you need something to help you repair. And this transcends way beyond Aquaphor and Vaseline. If you look at breast reconstruction, nevus removal, and Mohs surgery, I know Mohs surgery because I'm Irish. Everyone in my family forgets they're Irish. They sit at the beach, and then we end up with Mohs surgery. I've had mine. So this skin patch goes into the wound, absorbs all the exudate, and becomes your body. It's vastly different than covering a wound with the products we've discussed. It becomes your body. And it's not hard to figure out what it is. I'm holding a sheet of skin right now. This is skin that we spun from soy protein.
Interesting. And, I'm going to share from your website. For those who are interested, you can learn more at NeuEsse. That's NeuEsse.com. And so there's a couple of videos that really caught my attention. And let me just direct the audience a little bit. So one of them is this one right here, where essentially you have the patch on some knuckles and you see somebody flex. I mean, it looks like it's literally part of their skin, right? So it's very durable, right? That's one. The other one, which again, I think about like not just burn victims, but even diabetic foot ulcers. But I think burn victims is probably the best example because it's such a sensitive patient. But this essentially is that gun. And so it looks like it's about 10, maybe 12 inches away. And it seems to be extremely accurate because you fill in that like little square area, and you're able to put that graft on rather quickly. So, you guys are currently, as of like the time we're meeting, you're closing around and stuff. I'm wondering, when you raise money to commercialize this product, so you're going to go through 510K, when do you imagine that you'll be able to like essentially be commercial and selling?
We anticipate a commercial launch at the end of summer.
That's what I figured. So that being said, do you hire some salespeople to go and target a beachhead like wound care or aesthetics or something? Do you simultaneously consider licensing deals? Like, how are you thinking about this from a commercial standpoint to start bringing in revenue?
We've got 4 families of patents that we've protected in 33 countries. So we could sub-license by country if someone wanted to license Europe, Brazil, we have Australia, everything's covered. I've never opened up to a strategic. I think it's time to. We would like to have a partnership, smart money. We don't have a sales force. We could do a lot of damage to our competition with bids and contracts. It's orders of magnitude less expensive to spin soy protein than to decellularize pigs, cows, cadaverous, and other sources. So while we qualify for the same reimbursement codes, it costs orders of magnitude less. So we could do more with bids and contracts and 3 key account managers than most companies could with a sea of suits. But I'm open to talking about the possibility of a collaboration, a joint venture, or some smart money partnership.
Interesting. Yeah, and I think what's unique about this is that it's such I'm just going to guess that your COGS for producing and manufactures isn't exactly high. Where do you guys produce a lot of the components for this, like here in the United States, or do you use like overseas suppliers? Like what's the supply chain look like for this?
Yeah, I'm hedging my bet. I've spent all my time, most of my time, raising money, manufacturing, and FDA approved. Therefore, I need some help on getting the data room together and getting this in a pristine manner for the big venture capitalists. So we've hobbled along with friends and family pretty much so far. The cost of goods sold is minuscule compared to the competition. Our profit margin is going to be enormous. But more than that, we're going to help people. My mission is to not just help people, but open markets that can't afford good health care. And part of my plan to pay back, especially as a burn victim.
I love that. And But going back to it, like for something that's soybean based, like is that something that you can technically scale in manufacturing here in the United States? Or like I don't know what the soybean market is. Like, can you educate us? Like I feel like we're getting into like futures now or something, but like, like what's the soybean market like?
Great questions.
Because I would imagine the quality of soybeans in one country versus another is going to be different. So like who has the best soybeans in the world?
Well, we have done a lot of interaction in the agricultural field. A lot of our research has been sponsored by the United Soybean Board. It's a ubiquitous crop. We're never going to run out of sources, and it's a commercially available soy protein isolate, so it's transferable anywhere. We could electrospin in the United States. I'm hedging my bets now with two U.S. manufacturers in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and in Phoenix, Arizona. But I found a new partnership, and they are going to deploy what they call dry spinning, and they're in Nova Scotia, and they were at LSI 25 with us. And I'm excited about the possibility of all their capabilities. They're all polymer scientists. We could spin this domestically, internationally. It's got mobility. And once I was presenting to an angel investor group, and they said, "Are you worried about running out of raw materials?" And if we ever run out of soybeans, you and I are all in trouble. It's everywhere. And that's part of the beauty, the mechanical, chemical capabilities and the strength of soy, but the cost.
How did you figure out like the applications of soy? How did you figure that out, and why hasn't like a strategic or anybody else decided to go down this route?
Well, we didn't protect ourselves really well in the beginning, but we are now the only company that will ever produce a plant-based skin. It's in our patent. We could create a human skin substitute from corn zane. We're not going to, but I made sure no one else will either. So we are the plant-based skin, and anyone else who wants to can't because of the patent.
Got it. So in a perfect world, I mean, once you're commercial, well, do you see any consumer applications for this? Because, I'm a dad and a husband. And so like, I'm always thinking about things to have in the house. I have a son. So like he's going to get old enough where he's going to get into all kinds of trouble. Like, is there a world, I won't mention the companies. There are companies I know that have wound care dressings that have very unique healing abilities, and they're available on Amazon, right? They're like premium bandages, right? Could you guys technically like produce that and sell to the consumer? Is there like a shelf life to these things because it's soybean based, or what does that look like?
Because it's a soy protein, it's nearly limitless shelf life, which is another added feature. My goal is to get OmegaSkin sheets in the backpack of every warfighter that we deploy into combat. It's lightweight, costs less than what we're presently using, and the soldiers will look better with minimal to no scarring and all the appendages. However, why wouldn't one day we make 2 billion little squares of scar-preventing skin to put on the back of Band-Aids? And what mother wouldn't buy a scar-preventing Band-Aid? And I know where you're coming from because I have 3 kids and 4 grandchildren, and those grandchildren are going to fall off bikes. They're going to burn themselves somewhere. And I would like to have as many things possible to prevent scarring for those kids. So there's a commercial application for after, it's almost NFL draft season. So my blocking and tackling is to get the readily available sheets through the FDA onto the market, funnel the profits back in so that we can start with the research of weaving antimicrobials, stem cells, growth factors into the fabric of the wound.
Got it.
So and then we'll get to the commercial and, we'll get to people who don't want scars.
So first step for you essentially is to commercialize what you're going to get through this 510K. And that 510K product is just the OmegaSkin patch.
Right.
Okay. And that would be the best application for that, it seems like, would be like the wound care setting, like diabetic foot ulcers and anything else you'd find in a wound care, correct?
Absolutely. Nursing homes, wound centers, wound clinics, hospitals, and doctors' offices, all applicable to us. In all honesty and very humbly, we don't have the money to start working on the liquid skin until I get that patch into the market or find a partner or investor who sees what we have. What we have is tremendous, but we don't have the capital to not get focused on that one milestone of the patch through the FDA.
Got it. And then right now, like with the rest of the year, are you going to be at any conferences like American Society of Dermatology or anything like that? Are you going to be going to any conferences yourself that maybe a clinician or investor can meet with you?
I would like to go to the American Academy of Dermatology. We're concentrating our efforts and our funds into the military and the FDA. I will be at MHSRS in Kissimmee, Florida in August, and that is the meeting of the year for military medicine. We will get into the American Academy of Dermatology once we have a product available and the funds. You got to admit the evolution of reality. I used to present at JP Morgan. I can't afford to attend anymore. So, I'm managing my expectations, but I expect this to be very disruptive in dermatology, wound healing, burns, and the whole market of healing people. That's what I'm all about.
Fantastic. And like last thing I was going to ask you, Joe, is at the moment, are you guys, aside from, I think it seems like you're hyper focused on getting to the FDA. Do you have any concurrent clinical trials, any clinical studies that you're currently conducting at the moment?
We have a diabetic foot ulcer trial protocol is ready. One of my advisors is chairman of podiatry at Temple University. His name is Jim McGuire. And we are anticipating study of that first human clinical trial. And it will be at he's chairman of podiatry at Temple. That's our very first study. But I'd like to study chronic wounds and large wounds only because I don't think there's a competition out there willing to look into that. I could be wrong. I want to prove just how efficacious this is.
Fantastic. Well, Joe, thank you so much for coming on the show. I was really excited to have you on again. Like when we met at LSI and I heard your story and what the company was doing, I always tell people, because a lot of people try and get on the show and we try and have as many people on as we can. It's just tough. But I always say, if you have an interesting story, I will find you somehow. And so I'm glad that I found you, Joe.
I'm blessed to be invited, and I'd like to get someone's attention. We're here in Pittsburgh, and we're ready to take on the world.
Fantastic. Well, for those who are listening, again, if you're interested to learn more, go to NeuEsse.com. That's N as in Nancy, EUSSE.com to learn more. I'm your host, Omar Khateeb. If you know a dermatologist or a clinician in the wound care space or maybe an investor who might enjoy this episode, go ahead and forward this on to them. And as always, be sure to subscribe, give us 5 stars, and we'll see you all next time. Thanks for checking out this episode. If you want to do me a big favor and join so many other people who have helped grow this podcast, take a second and look below. If you're on Apple, give us 5 stars and write a short review. If you're on Spotify, just give us 5 stars. And if you're on YouTube, hit the like button. And most importantly, if you can, subscribe. We release so many different episodes that you may miss. Be sure to subscribe and turn your notifications on. You get extra points with me if you subscribe across all 3 channels. Thank you so much. And if you felt like this episode helped you, send this to somebody who'd really enjoy and appreciate it. Share and spread the love. We'll see you all next time.